theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer once preached of the spiritual damage fear creates, and he should know he died at the hands of the Nazis. It couches in people's hearts, he wrote, and it hollows out their insides and secretly gnaws and eats away all the ties that bind a person to God and to others. Could that be happening to our better angels today? Mohandas Gandhi, who of course was not a Christian, but took Jesus' teachings greatly to heart, wrote about 7 deadly social sins. Here they are. Politics without principle. Wealth without work. Commerce without morality. Pleasure without conscience. Education without character. Science without humanity. Worship without sacrifice. Are we there today? In society and nation and world and maybe in church? And is that not a contradiction to a God of mercy who loves his children and protects the weak ones? It is my premise this morning that the church is not God's witness to our better angels now, in this type of world, then we will fail to be Christ's church. We will fail to be the ones that God has sent us to be. It reminds me of an old saying. You all probably heard it. Behold the turtle. He only makes progress when he sticks his neck out. It's true. The church needs to stick her neck out in these increasingly bitter times in a full frontal assault on injustice, hatred, and fear. But how can we? I know you're thinking that. How can we do that? After all, we're small in number. Most of us older. None of us exactly supermen or women. How can we find again our better angels, even though we are united? But how do we find those better angels? Well, we can begin with a love that replicates God's love. It is what Episcopal Bishop Michael Curry talked about in his sermon at the royal wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. He noted that the great theologian and geologist Father Pierre Teilhard de Chardin once said that fire was one of man's greatest discoveries. And then Michael Curry, in his bubbly way, stated that if humanity ever captures the energy of love, it will be the second time in history that we have discovered fire. Church, that's you and me. We need to help start the fire of love that can unify the world, because we, you see, are united in and with Christ. We can start by recognizing the truth that was described earlier today by Dan so well in Psalm 148, where that all creatures, from sea monsters to human beings, even kings, both young and old, praise God. As Bill Staines put it in his classic folk tune, all God's critters have a place in the choir. And I will not sing it because I don't know the tune, to be honest with you, but here you go. Here's what it says. It's a simple song of living everywhere, by the ox and the ass and the grizzly bear, grumpy alligator and the hawks above, sly raccoon and the turtle dove. All God's critters have a place in the choir. Some sing low, some sing higher, some sing out loud on the telephone wire, and some just clap their hands or paws or anything they got. Yes, all God's critters have a place, and with anything we've got to clap to God's love and carry it out. I'll give you one example. Believe it or not, I'm only going to give you one example. It occurred in my very first pastorate in St. Paul's United Church of Christ in Little Rock, Arkansas. I had served there in the late 60s when race and Vietnam were daily issues in my ministry, because our church was affected by both of those things. Some years later, I was invited back to Little Rock to preach the installation sermon for a young man I had mentored when I was there. I was greeted at the airport by the church's president at that time, John Ross, a truly distinguished Southern gentleman, as it were. It truly was. And I always admired him. And as we drove through the city, with John pointing out how things had changed in Little Rock since I lived there, he alerted me to a change in the congregation. Now remember, this is Little Rock, Arkansas, in the 1960s and beyond. He said I would notice a new married couple in the choir. The wife was a young white woman, and her husband was a black officer at Robinson Air Base. John shared how he struggled when they asked to join St. Paul's. He said, I grew up, as you know, Lloyd, believing in that the races black and white should never mix. My answer, I had to ask myself if I was a Southerner first or a Christian first. The answer said was slow and tough in coming, but definite. I had to be a Christian first. So I led the way for those fine young folks to join our church. It was a lesson, folks, that God's critters have a place not only in the choir, but in God's kingdom. Or as I like to put it, God's kingdom of love and unity and peace. I leave you this question. When we go out of this place into our communities, into this troubled world of ours, do people see Jesus in us? Do people see Jesus in us? Do we mirror the unity of love that should represent our oneness with each other and with God in Christ? Do we display our better angels? Well, folks, if the answer is yes, then hear these words from Alfred Lord Tennyson. Come, my friends, 'tis not too late to seek a newer world. Shalom.